Maya Rodriguez sat in the corner of the communications room, her fingers moving quickly across the keyboard. The screen in front of her showed rows of alien text that would look like random symbols to most people. To Maya, they were as clear as English. She had been working at New Geneva Station for 3 years now. Every day was the same. She came to work, decoded alien messages, wrote reports, and went home. Nobody paid attention to her. Nobody asked her opinion. She was just another face in the crowd. The station was huge, with thousands of people working. There, most of them were important officers with shiny badges and loud voices. Captain Jake Morrison walked past her desk every morning without even looking at her. Commander Lisa Hayes got medals and promotions while Maya stayed in the same small office, doing the same quiet work, but Maya had a secret. She could speak and understand every alien language in the known galaxy. Not just the basic ones that most humans learned in school, but the difficult ones too. The clicking sounds of the cricks, the musical tones of the crystal beings called the Voth, even the ancient war language of the Zephyrians that most aliens couldn't understand. Maya had learned these languages by listening. For years she had sat in her corner, hearing every conversation, every transmission, every whispered word that came through the station's communication systems. While other people ignored the alien voices as background noise, Maya absorbed every sound, every meaning, every cultural detail. Today was different though. The entire station was on high alert. The Zephyrian Coalition had moved their war fleet to the edge of human space. Everyone was nervous. Meetings were happening all day. In the big conference rooms while Maya sat alone, monitoring the alien channels, she heard them talking. The Zephyrian commanders were discussing something important. Their language was complex, full of honor words and battle concepts that human translators always got wrong. Maya listened carefully as they spoke about their intentions. At 3 in the afternoon, the alarm bell rang. All senior officers were called to the main briefing room. Maya watched them rush past her desk, Colonel Ben Parker, Captain Morrison, Commander Hayes, and dozens of others. They looked worried. Maya knew why. The Zephyrian fleet had sent an official message, and the human command was trying to figure out what it meant. She could hear voices coming from the briefing room down the hall. They sounded confused and angry. An hour later, Colonel Parker came out of the meeting looking frustrated. He walked over to the translation department, which was right next to Maya's small office. She could hear everything through the thin walls. "The message doesn't make sense," Colonel Parker was saying to the head translator, a man named Dr. Roberts. "They're talking about honor debt and blood price. Are they threatening us or not?" Dr. Roberts sounded tired. "Sir, the Zephyrian language is very difficult. These concepts don't translate well into English. I think they might be asking for some kind of payment, but I'm not sure." "Payment for what?" Colonel Parker asked. "I don't know, sir. Maybe for crossing into their territory last month during the patrol mission." Maya's heart started beating faster. She had heard the original Zephyrian transmission. Dr. Roberts was wrong. Completely wrong. The Zephyrians weren't asking for payment. They were offering an alliance. The words he translated as honor debt actually meant shared victory. The phrase about blood price was really about warrior bond. If the humans responded based on Dr. Roberts' translation, they would insult the Zephyrians badly. It would mean war. Maya stood up from her desk. She walked to the door of her office and looked down the hall. She could see Colonel Parker pacing back and forth, looking at a piece of paper. That paper probably had Dr. Roberts' wrong translation on it. She took a deep breath and walked toward them. "Excuse me, sir," Maya said quietly. Colonel Parker looked up, surprised. He had probably never noticed her before. "Yes, what is it?" "I couldn't help hearing about the Zephyrian message, sir. I think there might be a mistake in the translation." Dr. Roberts frowned at her. I'm the head of the translation department. I've been studying alien languages for 20 years. Yes, sir. I know. But I've been listening to Zephyrian communications for 3 years, every day. And the words they use don't mean what you think they mean. Colonel Parker looked at Maya more carefully. You understand Zephyrian? Yes, sir. And Krix and Voth. And 12 other languages. The Zephyrians aren't threatening us. They're offering to work with us. They want to be our allies. Dr. Roberts laughed. That's impossible. The translation software clearly shows. The software is wrong, Maya said firmly. Zephyrian honor concepts are based on ancient war poetry. You can't translate them directly. You have to understand the cultural meaning behind the words. Colonel Parker was quiet for a moment. He looked at the paper in his hands, then at Maya. What exactly are they saying? Maya took the paper and read the original Zephyrian text. Her eyes moved quickly across the symbols. They're saying that humans showed courage in the patrol mission last month. They respect courage. They want to form a warrior bond with us against a common enemy. They're offering to share intelligence about hegemony movements in the outer sectors. The hegemony? Colonel Parker's eyes went wide. They're willing to help us fight the hegemony? Yes, sir. But only if we respond correctly. If we treat their offer as a threat or demand for payment, they'll consider it an insult. In Zephyrian culture, that would mean we're not worthy to be warriors. They'll leave and never offer again. Colonel Parker was quiet for a long time. Finally, he said, "Write me the correct response." Maya nodded. She went back to her desk and wrote out a reply in perfect Zephyrian. She explained the proper honor phrases, the cultural meanings, and exactly how Colonel Parker should present it to sound respectful and strong. 2 hours later, Colonel Parker delivered Maya's response to the Zephyrian fleet. The result was immediate. The Zephyrians agreed to meet for formal alliance talks. They praised the humans for understanding their ways. They said it showed wisdom and strength. Colonel Parker got a medal for the successful negotiation. He was promoted and transferred to a better position. The newspapers called him a brilliant diplomat who had prevented a war. Maya went back to her corner desk. Nobody asked her about the translation. Nobody thanked her for preventing a disaster. She was invisible again, just like always. But something had changed. Across the galaxy, on a Zephyrian warship, the fleet commander Thakmer was talking to his officers. The humans have someone who truly understands us, he said in the ancient war language. Not the loud one who spoke the words. Someone else. Someone who knows our heart speech. How do you know? Asked his second in command. Because no human has ever written our language so perfectly. Whoever translated that message understands us better than most of our own people do. Remember this. Name and this place warrior. Someday we may need to find the human who speaks with the voice of understanding. Maya didn't know about this conversation. She just kept doing her quiet work, listening to voices from across the stars, understanding. Secrets that nobody else could hear. She had no idea that her invisible life was about to change forever. 3 months after the Zephyrian alliance, Maya was still working at the same desk in the same corner office. Nothing had changed for her, even though the station was busier than ever. New alien species were visiting almost every day. The alliance was growing stronger, and everyone was excited about the joint military exercises planned for next week. Maya listened to all the preparations through her communication channels. The exercise would take place on Training Ground 7, a large area of space near the station. Human soldiers would work alongside alien warriors from 6 different species. It was supposed to show how well they could fight together. Captain Jake Morrison had been promoted to major after Colonel Parker left. He was now in charge of the human forces for the exercise. Commander Lisa Hayes was his second in command. They spent their days in meetings, making plans and giving orders to their staff. Maya heard them talking as they walked past her office. "This is going to be perfect," Major Morrison said. "The aliens will see how professional human soldiers are. We'll show them the proper way to run a military operation." "Do you think they'll follow our commands?" Commander Hayes asked. "They'll have to. We're the hosts. This is our training ground. They need to learn to work the human way." Maya shook her head quietly. She had been listening to the alien communications for weeks. The different species had very different ideas about how the exercise should work. The Zephyrians expected honor challenges and single combat. The insect-like Cricks wanted to use swarm tactics. The crystal beings called Voth needed precise mathematical formations, but the human officers didn't know any of this. They planned to treat all the aliens the same way they treated human soldiers. On the day of the exercise, Maya was assigned to monitor communications from the command center. She sat at her usual station, watching screens full of data while the important officers stood around the main display table. The exercise started well. All the ships moved to their positions on time. The alien warriors followed the basic commands. Major Morrison looked pleased as he watched the tactical display. Then everything went wrong at once. The first sign of trouble came from the outer sensor array. Maya saw it on her screen before anyone else did. A group of unknown ships was approaching. Fast. They weren't supposed to be there. "Unknown contacts approaching from Sector 12, Maya called out. Major Morrison looked at the main display. Probably just late arrivals. "Hayes, send them the exercise codes." But Maya was listening to their communications. The approaching ships were speaking in hegemony battle language. These weren't late arrivals. They were enemies. "Sir," Maya said, her voice louder now, "those ships are hegemony forces. They're planning to attack." "Impossible," Major Morrison said. "The hegemony doesn't operate in this sector." Maya's screen lit up with warning signals. "Sir, they're charging weapons. This is not a drill." The attack came without warning. Hegemony fighters swept down on the mixed fleet like hungry wolves. The exercise formation broke apart in seconds. Ships scattered in all directions, their neat patterns destroyed by panic and confusion. In the command center, alarms were screaming. Officers were shouting orders, but nobody seemed to know what to do. The communication system was filled with voices in dozens of languages, all talking at once. Major Morrison tried to take control. "All ships form defensive pattern Alpha." "Repeat, defensive pattern Alpha." But the alien ships didn't respond. They didn't know human defensive patterns. Some of the Zephyrian fighters started individual attacks, following their warrior code. The Crick ships formed their own swarm without waiting for orders. The Voth ships stopped moving completely, confused by the chaos. Maya watched the tactical display with growing horror. The mixed fleet was falling apart. The hegemony forces were picking them off one by one. "The aliens aren't following our commands," Commander Hayes said, her voice tight with fear. "Why aren't they listening?" Major Morrison demanded. Maya knew why. She had tried to warn them weeks ago, but nobody had asked for her opinion. The different species didn't just have different languages. They had different ways of thinking about war, about leadership, about working together. Then the hegemony forces targeted the command center itself. A massive explosion rocked the station. The lights went out for a moment, then came back on. When they did, Major Morrison was on the floor, badly hurt. Commander Hayes was unconscious. Half the command staff was either dead or wounded. Maya looked around the destroyed command center. She was the only officer still at her station. Outside, the battle was getting worse every minute. Ships were exploding. Good people were dying. She looked at her screen and saw something that made her heart stop. The senior officers were all gone. She was the highest-ranking person left who could still function. According to military rules, command fell to her, but Maya was just a communications officer. She had never led anyone before, She had never even spoken up in a meeting. The radio crackled with desperate voices. Human pilots were calling for help. Alien warriors were asking for orders in their own languages. Everyone was confused and scared. Maya took a deep breath. She put on the command headset and started talking. "All ships, this is communications. Officer Rodriguez, I am taking command of the exercise." The response was immediate and not good. "Who?" came a human voice. "Never heard of you." The Zephyrian ships responded in their own language, confused and angry. The Krix made clicking sounds that meant they didn't recognize her authority. The Voth ships just stopped responding at all. Maya realized that shouting orders wouldn't work. These beings didn't know her. They had no reason to trust her. She needed to earn their respect, not demand it. She switched to the Zephyrian channel and spoke in their ancient war language. "Warriors of the Sky Hunt, I am Maya, speaker of the Star Words. Your battle wisdom is needed. The shadow enemies strike. Without honor, will you lend your strength to the fight?" The response came quickly. "You speak our heart tongue, small warrior. We hear you." Then she switched to the Krix frequency and used their rapid clicking speech. "Hive defenders, the swarm is broken but not destroyed. Your speed and numbers can turn the battle. Strike as one, strike as many." "We understand," came the reply. "We will fly as the storm flies." To the Voth, she spoke in their precise mathematical language about formations and probability matrices. To the human pilots, she gave clear, simple orders that they could follow. Slowly, the scattered fleet began to come together. But Maya wasn't trying to force them into human patterns. Instead, she was using each group's strengths. She sent the fast Zephyrian fighters to attack the enemy's flanks. She ordered the Krix to use their swarm tactics against the enemy's heavy ships. The Voth vessels formed a defensive wall with their powerful shields. The human ships provided covering fire and coordinated support. The battle turned. The hegemony forces had expected to fight a confused, disorganized enemy. Instead, they faced something they had never seen before, a truly unified force where every species fought the way they fought best. When the last hegemony ship exploded, there was silence on all channels. Then, one by one, the alien voices began to speak. "The Star Word speaker leads well," said the Zephyrian commander. "The small human thinks like the swarm," clicked the Krix leader. "Combat efficiency increased by 47% under new command structure," reported the Voth captain. Maya sat back in her chair, exhausted. She had done it. She had led them to victory. But she had also learned something important. She wasn't invisible anymore. News of Maya's victory spread across the galaxy faster than light-speed messages. Within a week, every military base, every alien homeworld, and every news station was talking about the human communications officer who had led a mixed fleet to victory against the hegemony. Admiral Kate Sullivan arrived at New Geneva Station 3 days after the battle. She was the sector commander, a tall woman with gray hair and sharp eyes who had fought in more wars than most people could count. Maya had never spoken to her before, but she knew the Admiral's reputation. She was tough, smart, and she didn't like surprises. Maya was still working at her corner desk when Admiral Sullivan walked into the communications room. Everyone stopped what they were doing and stood up straight. But the Admiral walked right past all of them and stopped at Maya's desk. "Officer Rodriguez," Admiral Sullivan said. "Yes, ma'am," Maya replied, standing up quickly. "Walk with me." They went to the Admiral's temporary office, a small room overlooking the docking bays. Through the window, Maya could see alien ships from dozens of species. Some had come to join the Alliance. Others had come just to see the human who had united the fleet. "I've read the battle reports," Admiral Sullivan said. "Every single one of them says the same thing. You saved that fleet by understanding them better than their own commanders did." "I just listen to them, ma'am. Most people don't." "Most people." Can't. Do you know what makes you different? Maya thought about it. I've always been good with languages. And I pay attention to things other people ignore. Admiral Sullivan smiled. That's one way to put it. Here's another way. You have a gift. That could change how we fight this war. The question is, what do we do with it? Ma'am? I'm promoting you to Major and giving you command of the first integrated multi-species battalion in human history. Your job will be to prove that different species can work together as a single fighting unit. Maya felt her heart start beating. Faster. Ma'am, I've never commanded a battalion before. No one has ever commanded a battalion like this before. You'll be making it up as you go along. Are you ready for that? Maya looked out the window at the alien ships. She thought about all the voices she had heard over the years, all the languages she had learned, all the secrets she had kept. For the first time in her life, someone was asking her to use everything she knew. Yes, ma'am, I'm ready. 2 weeks later, Maya stood in the main hangar bay of the Starship Liberty. Around her were 500 beings from 12 different species. They were all soldiers, but they looked like they belonged in a zoo instead of a military unit. The Zephyrians stood in perfect formation, their blue skin gleaming under the lights. They were tall and proud, with faces that looked like they were carved from stone. Next to them, the Krix soldiers moved in quick, nervous patterns, their insect-like bodies clicking and humming. The Crystal Voth stood completely still, their transparent forms glowing with inner light. There were others too. The furry Novan scouts with their sharp ears and bright eyes. The armored Helix warriors who looked like walking tanks. The floating ether beings who didn't even have solid bodies and scattered throughout the alien soldiers were humans. They looked small and fragile compared to some of the other species, but Maya knew they were just as deadly in their own way. The problem was that none of them wanted to work together. Maya watched as a Zephyrian warrior bumped into a Krix soldier. The Krix made angry clicking sounds. The Zephyrian responded with a growl that meant something very rude in the ancient war language. Within seconds, they were ready to fight. A human sergeant tried to break them up, but he couldn't understand what they were saying to each other. His shouting only made things worse. This was Maya's battalion. These were the soldiers she was supposed to turn into a unified fighting force. Attention! Maya called out, using her command voice for the first time. Some of the humans snapped to attention. The aliens mostly ignored her. Maya switched to Zephyrian and repeated the command. The blue warriors straightened up. Then she used Krix language. Then Voth, then all the others. One by one, every species in the hangar came to attention. My name is Major Maya Rodriguez, she said, speaking in standard English but repeating herself in every language present. I am your commanding officer. For the next 6 months, we will train together, fight together, and learn together. Some of you think this is impossible. Some of you think your species is better than all the others. You're all wrong. A Zephyrian warrior stepped forward. Maya recognized him as Thakmer, the fleet commander she had heard about in the communications. Intercepts. Human who speaks true, he said in his own language. You led us well in the sky battle. But leading in battle and leading in training are different things. How will you make us into one force when we are so many different kinds of warriors? Maya had been thinking about this question for weeks. She had studied every military manual, every training program, every leadership guide she could find. None of them had answers for her situation. I won't make you into one force, she said, still speaking in multiple languages. I will make you into something better. A force that uses all your different strengths instead of ignoring them. She gestured to the Zephyrian warriors. Your people value honor and individual courage. That's not a weakness to overcome. It's a strength to use. Then she looked at the Krix soldiers. Your people think as one mind, moving faster than any individual can. That's not strange, it's powerful. She went through each species, naming their strengths, their values, their ways of fighting. As she spoke, Maya could see something changing in their faces. They weren't being told to give up who they were. They were being told that who they were mattered. Here's how we'll train, Maya continued. Each species will teach the others their best skills. Zephyrians will show us honor combat. Krix will demonstrate swarm tactics. Voth will share their mathematical formations. Humans will teach adaptation and improvisation. An old human sergeant raised his hand. Ma'am, with respect, how do we know this will work? These species have been fighting each other for thousands of years. Maya smiled. Sergeant, they've been fighting each other because they didn't understand each other. Fear comes from not knowing. Respect comes from understanding. We're going to replace fear with respect. The training started the next day. At first, it was a disaster. The Zephyrians thought the Krix were cowards because they avoided single combat. The Krix thought the Zephyrians were stupid because they fought as individuals. The Voth couldn't understand why anyone would make decisions based on emotion instead of logic, but Maya had a plan. She paired up soldiers from different species and made them work together on simple tasks. She had them eat together, sleep in the same barracks, and share their stories. Slowly, things began to change. The human soldiers learned that Zephyrian arrogance was really a deep sense of personal responsibility. The Zephyrians discovered that Krix cowardice was actually tactical intelligence. The Krix realized that human chaos was creative problem-solving. 3 months into training, Maya's battalion faced their first real test. The hegemony had attacked a research station in the Kepler frontier. The station was defended by a mixed force of humans and aliens, but they were outnumbered and couldn't work together effectively. Maya's battalion was sent to help. When they arrived at the battle zone, the situation was desperate. The research station was surrounded by hegemony ships. The defending forces were scattered and confused, just like the fleet had been during the training exercise. But Maya's soldiers were different now. When she gave the order to attack, they moved like parts of a single organism. The Zephyrians led the charge, their individual courage inspiring everyone else. The Krix swarmed around the enemy flanks, their coordinated attacks creating chaos in the hegemony ranks. The Voth provided precise covering fire while the humans adapted to fill any gaps in the formation. The battle was over in 30 minutes. The hegemony forces retreated, leaving the research station safe. As Maya watched her soldiers celebrate together, she realized something important had happened. They weren't just following her orders anymore. They were thinking like a team, fighting like a family. Word of the victory reached Admiral Sullivan within hours. The message was simple: the experiment worked. Request permission to expand the program. Maya was no longer the invisible communications officer. She was the commander who had proven that the galaxy's greatest strength wasn't any single species, but all of them working together. The war was about to change forever. 6 months after the research station victory, Maya stood on the bridge of the battleship Star Unity, looking out at the largest fleet ever assembled. Over 3,000 ships from 47 different species filled the space around her, all waiting for orders from the woman who had once filed reports in a corner office. The hegemony had launched their final attack. Their massive war fleet was moving toward the core worlds, the heart of human and allied territory. If they won this battle, the war would be over. Everything Maya cared about would be destroyed. Admiral Sullivan had made a decision that shocked the entire military. She gave Maya command of the entire defense fleet. Not just her integrated battalion, but every ship and soldier in the sector. The announcement had caused problems immediately. Many human officers were angry. Major Jake Morrison, who had recovered from his injuries, was the loudest voice of protest. "This is insane," he said during the final briefing. "She's been an officer for less than a year. I've been serving for 15 years. Half the captains in this fleet have more experience than she does. Experience fighting the old way, Admiral. Sullivan replied. Maya fights the new way. And right now, the new way is our only chance of winning. Maya understood their anger. She had been invisible for so long that most of them still couldn't believe she was real. But she also understood something they didn't. The hegemony's greatest weapon wasn't their ships or their soldiers. It was their ability to make different species fight each other instead of working together. Every time the Alliance had faced the hegemony before, the same thing happened. The different species would start with good intentions, but within hours they would be arguing about tactics, fighting over command decisions, and eventually turning on each other. The hegemony commanders knew exactly how to exploit these divisions, but Maya's integrated forces were different. They had learned to trust each other, to understand each other, to fight as one unit while keeping their individual strengths. The problem was that most of the fleet hadn't been through Maya's training program. She had 1,200 soldiers who worked perfectly together, and 30,000 who had never learned to cooperate with other species. The hegemony fleet appeared on the sensors 3 days later. It was enormous, bigger than anything the Alliance had ever faced. Thousands of dark ships moving in perfect formation, like a storm cloud spreading across the stars. Maya stood at the command console, surrounded by officers from dozens of species. Her old friend Thackemer was there, now serving as her tactical advisor. The Krix Hive leader Zixara provided intelligence analysis. The Voth crystal being called Nine of Precision handled fleet coordination, but she could feel the tension in the room. The other human officers watched her with doubt and fear. Some of the alien commanders were questioning whether a young human could really lead such a massive fleet. Enemy fleet will reach firing range in 2 hours, reported 9-of-precision. Maya looked at the tactical display. The hegemony ships were moving in their standard formation, designed to spread chaos and confusion among allied forces. They would attack from multiple angles, forcing different species to make quick decisions without time to coordinate. All fleet commanders, this is General Rodriguez, Maya said into her communicator. She had been promoted again just before the battle, making her the youngest general in human history. I know what you're thinking, she continued. You're looking at the enemy fleet and wondering how we can possibly win. You're looking at the ships around you and wondering how all these different species can fight together. Some of you are wondering why you're taking orders from someone who was nobody a year ago. She paused, letting her words sink in. Here's what I know. The hegemony has won every major battle for the past 10 years because they understood something we didn't. They knew that our diversity was our weakness because we never learned to make it our strength. Maya switched to tactical display, showing the enemy formation to every ship in the fleet. Look at how they're attacking. They're planning to split us up, make us fight as separate groups, turn us against each other. That's what always happens. But not today. She began giving orders, but not the kind of orders anyone expected. Zephyrian fleet commanders, I want you to choose the most honorable targets. Fight the battles that will bring glory to your warriors. Crick swarms, find the chaos points where your speed and numbers will cause maximum confusion. Voth formations, calculate the mathematical weak points in their formation and strike with precision. The alien commanders responded immediately. They understood what Maya was doing. She wasn't trying to force them to fight like humans. She was asking them to fight like themselves, but as part of a greater plan. Human captains, Maya continued, your job is to adapt. Fill the gaps, support our allies. Do what humans do best, improvise and overcome. As the fleets moved toward each other, Maya watched something beautiful happen. Instead of trying to maintain rigid formations, her forces flowed like water, each species moving in their natural patterns, but coordinated toward common goals. The hegemony commanders were confused. They had expected the usual chaos, the usual arguments and mistakes. Instead, they faced something they had never seen before, a unified force that fought with dozens of different styles but shared a single purpose. The battle was intense. Ships exploded on both sides. Good people died. But Maya's fleet held together, and more importantly, they supported each other. When a group of Zephyrian fighters got surrounded, a Crick swarm appeared to help them escape. When human ships were outgunned, Voth vessels provided shield support. When alien formations were broken, human captains improvised new tactics to keep the attack going. The turning point came when Maya realized something about the enemy flagship. She had been listening to hegemony communications throughout the battle, and she noticed that their coordination was getting worse. They're using fear to control their own forces, she told Thukmar. Their commanders are threatening their captains. Their captains are threatening their crews. Fear makes them obey, but it also makes them weak. What does that mean for us? Thukmar asked. It means we have something they don't understand and can't defeat. We have trust. Maya ordered the final attack. Every species in her fleet moved. Together, not because they were afraid of punishment, but because they trusted each other and believed in their mission. The hegemony flagship tried to escape when they realized they were losing, but Maya's forces surrounded it completely. The enemy commander surrendered rather than watch his entire fleet be destroyed. When the battle was over, Maya stood on her bridge surrounded by friends from across the galaxy. Officers who had once doubted her were now asking for her advice. Species that had been enemies for centuries were planning joint training exercises. Admiral Sullivan's voice came over the communication system. General Rodriguez, you have achieved something that most people thought was impossible. You've proven that our differences make us stronger, not weaker. Maya looked out at the mixed fleet, ships from dozens of worlds flying together in peaceful formation. Thank you, Admiral. But this isn't about what I achieved. This is about what we all achieved together. Later, in her private quarters, Maya thought about her journey from the corner communications desk to the bridge of a flagship. She had learned that leadership wasn't about being the loudest voice or having the highest rank. It was about listening, understanding, and helping others become their best selves. She was no longer the invisible officer filing reports. She was the general who had taught the galaxy that unity didn't mean uniformity, and that the greatest strength came not from forcing everyone to be the same, but from celebrating what made each species unique. The war was over, but Maya's real work was just beginning. She had a galaxy to help heal, and species to help understand each other. For the first time in her life, everyone knew her name. But more importantly, she had helped everyone know themselves.